Hello YouTubers! I will be going through this week's games, review last week's tips and leaderboard of our footy tip comp, and also go through my Brownlow Votes for season 2025. My Brownlow predictor after round 23 are in top spot with 38 votes we have N. Dacos, Collingwood. In second spot, trailing by 3 votes, is B. Smith, Geelong, with 35 votes. In third spot with 31 votes, we have N. Anderson of Gold Coast Suns. In fourth spot with 28 votes, we have C. Sarong, Fremantle. And to round out the top 5 with 27 votes, we have Tom Green of GWS Giants. These are my top 5 of the 2025 Brownlow Medal votes after round 23. My 23 results of the tipping comp, I got 3 incorrect. Therefore, I had 6 out of 9 votes correct. The 3 games that I got incorrect were Fremantle lost to the Brisbane Lions on the Friday night. On Saturday, the Gold Coast Suns lost at home to the Giants by 3 odd points. And on Sunday afternoon, I took a gamble. I tipped the Swans to beat the Geelong Cats because the previous week, the Swans had a magnificent away win against the Brisbane Lions at the Gabba. Unfortunately, I got the Swans wrong. Let's look at the Talking Effing AFL leaderboard. In top spot with 139 tips, we have Patrick L. 32. In second spot with 138 tips, we have Red Dead Redemption. And then 2 players tied with 136 votes that are in equal third spot are Talking Effing AFL, me, and I Am Hacks. To round out the top 5 with 130 votes, we have Potter 1. These are the leaderboard of the Talking Effing AFL footy tips. Before we continue, I would like to ask for a very small favour. If you enjoy this AFL content, please take a sec to subscribe to the channel and like the video. That would be awesome. Okay, let's return back to the show. First game of the week is played between Carlton and Essendon on the Thursday night at the MCG. The Bombers lost at home to St Kilda by 2 points last week, whereas Carlton had a magnificent 54-point win against Port Adelaide Power. The players in the mix for the Bombers are Vicentini, Johnson and Smart. For the Blues, their players in the mix are Pitnott, White and McGovern. Where the game will be won at, just looking at Essendon's roster. So many injuries and all kids playing, they include Clark, Kako, McMahon. So many young players in the wing. And therefore, with the inexperience that Essendon has in their side, Cal's been good in the last few games. Good form. I'm going to say the Blues beat the Bombers by 36 points. The next game, played on a Friday night, is between Collingwood Magpies and Melbourne Demons. Last week, Collingwood had a shattering 3-point loss to the Adelaide Crows, whereas the Demons lost to the Hawks by 6 goals or 36 points. The players in the mix for the Maggies are Mitchell, Markov and Cox. For the D's, their players in the mix are Billings, Adams and Johnson. Just looking at the two teams, Melbourne, season's over, had a bad season, new coach. This will be Troy Chapman's 3rd game in charge before the season ends. Collingwood, even though they lost 4 of the last 5 games, they had a magnificent game against the Crows and just lost. They were very good. They had like plus 30 odd inside 50s and just unfortunate not to beat the Crows. And just the way the two teams are, Collingwood top 4, trying to consolidate and finish in the top 4. Melbourne bottom 6. I'm going to say Collingwood to easily beat Melbourne Demons by 46 points. Third game, played on a Friday night, is between Port Adelaide Power and Gold Coast Suns. Last week, the Power lost by 54 points to Carlton. What a bad loss. And Gold Coast were upset at home by the Giants by 35 points. The players in the mix for the Power are Atkins, McKinlay and Finlayson. For the Gold Coast Suns, their players in the mix are Moyle, Rogers and Lombard. Just looking at this game, it's going to be a night of milestones, or farewell I should say. Port Adelaide gun player Travis Boak will be playing his last game ever for the Power, and also this will be Ken Hinkley's last game in charge of the Port. before Josh Carr takes over for next season. But just looking at the two teams, Port Adelaide struggling. They've lost heavily in the last number of games. They lost to the Crows by like 98 points. They had a close loss to Fremantle by 6 points last week, but got smashed by Carlton by 54 points. They're struggling at this moment and can't wait for the season to end. Gold Coast Suns, decent side in top 6. They had an upset loss to GWS Giants last week at home. Just looking at the players on the Gold Coast list, your midfielders of your Rao, Anderson, Miller, just got so much class. I expect the Suns to easily beat Port Adelaide by 28 points. The next game, played on Saturday lunchtime, is between North Melbourne Kangaroos and the Adelaide Crows at Marvel Stadium in Melbourne, Victoria. Last week, the Roos had a magnificent 48-point win against Richmond Tigers, whereas the Crows, in an hour bottle, they beat the Collingwood Magpies by 3 points as they conceded the first 4 goals of the game. The players in the mix for the Roos are Dersma, Go and Phillips. For the Crows, their players in the mix are Laird, Dowling, Butts and Burgess. Where the game will be won, just looking at the two sides. North Melbourne, bottom 3. Crows, top 2. If the Crows win this game, they'll still win a premiership. And just where the two teams are, the Crows in good form, 7-game winning streak. North Melbourne, another poor performance of this season, finishing in the bottom 3. I expect Adelaide to easily beat North Melbourne by 27 points. The next game, played on a Saturday afternoon, is between Richmond Tigers and Geelong Cats. The Tigers lost to the Kangaroos by 48 points last week, whereas Geelong had a good win against Sydney in Sydney. The players in the mix for the Tigers are Quincas, Kozitsky and Green. For the Cats, their players in the mix are Nimbus, Clark and Hughes. Where the game will be won at, it's look at the two teams where they're at. Richmond in the bottom 3, Geelong top 2 and in second spot. Geelong are going to play finals as usual again. Tigers will be finishing in the bottom 3 and had a good season in terms of development, playing so many players drafted in the last 2 years, especially last season's draft where they had like 4 or 5 first round draft picks and most of those young kids were able to get games this year. So in terms of development, Richmond had a good season. However, Geelong, experienced side, final side, they need this win badly to maintain the spot in the top 2 to get the double charge. And due to all those factors, I'm going to say Geelong to easily beat Richmond Tigers by 38 points. The next game, played on a Saturday night, is between West Coast Eagles and Sydney Swans. West Coast had a big loss against the Western Bulldogs last week, whereas the Swans were pretty competitive against Geelong, but lost to a good side Geelong, who are in the top 2. The players in the mix for the Eagles are Champion, Hunt and Williams. For the Swans, their players in the mix are Green, Roberts and Corey Warner. Where the game will be won at, just the performance of West Coast this season. They have only won 1 game this season. Sydney had a slow start this year, won like 1 game in the first 6. Been competitive mid-season to now. They were very competitive against Geelong last week, and the week before they beat the Lions at the Gabba. And where the two teams are at, West Coast, dead last, with only 1 win this year. Sydney, maybe due to the loss of the grand final last year, that this year things just didn't go well. And they had so many injuries, missing like lots of their forwards this year. Amadi, Papali, Logan McDonald, lots of injuries. But they've got good players playing in this game. Your Haywood and Papali are in this team for the Swans. And I expect the Swans to easily beat the Eagles by 22 points. The next game, played on a Sunday lunchtime, is between GWS Giants against St Kilda Saints. Last week, the Giants had a good 33-point win at Gold Coast Suns home. What a win. Whereas the Saints had a close 2-point win over Essendon Bombers. The players in the mix for the Giants are Key, Leake and Delana. For the Saints, their players in the mix are Keeler, Henry and O'Connell. Where the game will be won at, it's a ruck midfield set of 2 respective sides. For the Giants, you got Briggs in ruck, with the midfielders of Callaghan, Tom Green, Cogniglio, Thomas and Anglin. For the Saints, you got Marshall in ruck, with the midfielders of Steele, Hall, Boxshell, Brad Hill and Windhager. Just looking at that, I expect Briggs to do well against Marshall in ruck. Say it's even between the two, just. Then got like Canham, Tom Green against Steele and Hall respectively. I expect the 2 Giants midfielders to dominate that. And then in the centre, you got Cogniglio against Boxshell, with the wingers of Thomas and Angwin against Windhager and Hill respectively. I just give the chocolates to those GWS Giants players. Overall, I expect the Giants ruck midfield set to dominate in this game, and if they do, they'll provide a lot of inside 50 where you got your Toby Greens, Riccardi, Cadman, Darcy Jones, Callum Brown to kick a big score, and I say the Giants in a close one, 12 points. The next game, played on a Sunday afternoon, is between the Western Bulldogs and Fremantle Dockers. The Doggies had a big win over West Coast Eagles last week, whereas Fremantle were very disappointing on Friday night and lost to the Lions by 57 points. The players in the mix for the Doggies are Hines, Jones and Smith. For the Dockers, their players in the mix are Walker, Dudley and McDonald. Basically, this game is the battle for 8th spot, or like a wildcard playoff game. Whoever wins will seal 8th spot. It's 8 versus 9. Fremantle 8th, Western Bulldogs 9th, and the winner will finish in 8th. Just look at the form of the two sides. Fremantle, they lost to the Lions by 57 points last week. Before that, they just won against Port Adelaide by 6 points. And the previous week before that, they beat the Blues by 27 points. But the Blues were up for the first 3 quarters, and Fremantle were outrun them in the last quarter. But Fremantle's performance has been patchy in the last few weeks, whereas the Doggies, they have won 4 games in a row, and before that, they had 2 losses, which were against the Lions by 10 points and the Adelaide Crows by 11 points. The Doggies are a good side, but they just are the next level below your Adelaide, Brisbane, Collingwood and Geelong. And just basically on that and the two sides, this game is based in Victoria at Marvel Stadium. I want to say the Doggies to beat Fremantle by 17 points. The last game of the week, played on a Sunday evening, is between Brisbane Lions and Hawthorn Hawks. Game of the week. The Lions had a good 57-point win at Fremantle last week, whereas the Hawks easily beat the Melbourne Demons by 36 points. The players in the mix for the Lions are Brain, Joyce and McInerney. For the Hawks, their players in the mix are McKenzie, Sarong and McDonald. Where the game will be won at, it's a ruck midfield setup of the two respective sides. For the Lions, you got 4 in ruck with the midfields of Dunkley, Bailey, McCluggage, Reveal and Will Ashcroft. For the Hawks, in ruck you got Meek with the midfields of Nico, Ward, Nash, Moore and Eamon. Just looking at the two ruck midfield setups, you got 4 against Meek. I say it's even between these two ruckmans. Then in midfield, you got Dunkley and Bailey against Nico and Ward. I give the chocolates to the two Brisbane Lions midfielders. Then in centre, you got McCluggage against Nash. I give the advantage to McCluggage. Then on the wings, you got Reveal and Will Ashcroft against Airborne and Moore. Looking at the Brisbane Lions wingers, I give them slight advantage over the Hawthorns wingers. Therefore, the ruck midfield setup, I give the advantage to the Brisbane Lions. The game's played at the Gabba. The Lions will have so many opportunities to go forward, as I believe that the Lions midfielders will win more clearances and stoppages, where they can feed the ball off to your Logan Morris, Sam Day, Hitwood, Charlie Cameron. So many players that can kick goals, including Archie. And therefore, I want to say it's going to be a good game and a close one. But the Lions just to edge the Hawks by 11 points. My round 24 tips are the Blues to beat the Dons, the Maggies to beat the D's, Gold Coast to beat Port Adelaide, and away teams of the Crows, Geelong and Swans to win their respective away games. The Giants, the Doggies and Brisbane Lions to all win their respective home games. Thank you for watching my video, and it will be appreciated if you can subscribe and comment to my videos. Hopefully you enjoyed my video, and see you next time. Cheers or bye.